Welcome back to Human Biology with Dr. B, the time you've all been waiting for. Let's talk about reproduction. Oh, yeah. So first, it's everybody's favorite word. I bet you wondered why in 7th grade they called them nads. It's because it comes from the word gonads, which is actually a scientifically correct term. Gonads refer to the main reproductive organs that produce gametes, which in males is the testes and in females is the ovaries. Two major important functions of the gonads. Number one, they produce the gametes. What is a gamete? The gametes are the sex cells. There are only two. There's sperm and there's eggs. All the other cells in your body, aside from sperm and eggs, are somatic cells. Every other cell in your body, your eye cells, your hair cells, are somatic cells. Only your sex cells, your gametes, your eggs produced by your ovaries, and your sperm produced by your testes are in fact gametes. That's it. And the other thing that these organs do is they produce your major sexual hormones: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, androgens, just to name a few. Now, again, the testes produce sperm and testosterone. The ovaries produce eggs, estrogen, and progesterone. So we have two very different reproductive strategies for males and females. So the reproductive strategy of the male, and if you think about it in evolutionary, totally scientific terminology, this makes total sense. So the men, they just want to have a baby. But they can't have a baby. They need a girl. So what do? They just produce 1 million sperm a day in hopes that eventually one of them will make its mark. Now, what do females do? In evolutionary terms here. Hey, I have to carry a baby, so I'm only going to produce 1 egg a month because that's as many babies as my body can handle. So gametes, we talked about them in the previous slide. Each gamete contains 1/2 the total number of chromosomes. So in each of the cells, in all of your somatic cells, all of your other cells, aside from the eggs and sperm, they have 46 chromosomes. You get 1 set from your mom and 1 set from your dad. You get 23 from your mom and 23 from your dad. Now, when gametes are formed, they only have 23. And it's amazing the various ways that our bodies, introduce genetic variation. Now, you might think, okay, so each gamete only has 23 chromosomes, but I get 23 from my mom and 23 from my dad. So does that 23 just go straight into one gamete? And the answer would be no. That's called the law of independent assortment, where all of these chromosomes can independently assort, mom and dad can independently assort into the gametes that will make up a grandchild. It's really awesome. And that's one way of getting massive amounts of genetic variation. So when an egg and sperm fuse at fertilization, they form a zygote with a full set of chromosomes. So the male reproductive system, 4 major parts: the testes, the duct system, the accessory glands, and the penis. So the testes, these are held outside the abdominal cavity, and this is so that they can have a lower temperature to allow the sperm to mature and to live. The sperm develop in seminiferous tubules after puberty, not before, and this is also when the testicles drop, because as they begin to produce sperm, they need to be located outside of the body. The body temperature doesn't kill the sperm. There are interstitial cells that produce androgens, one of which, the main one, includes testosterone. So the duct system includes 3 major parts. We have the epididymis, the vas deferens, and the urethra. The epididymis brings the sperm from the seminiferous tubules. This is where the sperm are stored as well as when they mature. The vas deferens is simply a conducting vessel. It moves the sperm from the epididymis to the urethra. And the urethra is what, in a male, conducts both urine and sperm out of the male body. Accessory glands. Now, the prostate gland produces alkaline secretions, which not only activate the sperm, but it also helps to decrease the pH of the female so that the sperm actually have a chance. The seminal vesicles, these are paired glands. These are on either side, and they secrete all the nourishing stuff that will help the sperm to move, because the sperm actually do have to swim, and so they need some type of energy in order to do that. And then the bulbourethral glands are responsible for actually cleaning the urethra before the sperm can swim on through. So sperm development, there's 3 major stages. There's the spermatogonia, and then the primary spermatocyte, and then the spermatozoa. The spermatogonia are undifferentiated diploid cells. What does diploid mean? It means that these cells have 46 chromosomes. They have yet to separate down into 23. Now, the primary spermatocyte is the diploid cell that undergoes 2 rounds of meiosis. Meiosis is the process by which genetic variation is introduced, as well as the number of chromosomes is halved. So that way you only get 23 from your dad and only 23 from your mom. So that when they combine, you have 46, which is a viable human. So the secondary spermatocytes, this is what happens after the first round of meiosis. And then we have spermatids, which occurs after the second round of meiosis. And then we have spermatozoa. This is the mature sperm. It has 3 major parts. It has a head, a midpiece, and a tail. Now the head, the tip on the sperm is called the acrosome, and it actually has enzymes that allow it to burrow into the egg so that fertilization can occur. So the female reproductive system, 5 major parts: ovaries, oviducts, uterus, cervix, and vagina. Ovaries produce eggs through oogenesis. They also produce estrogen and progesterone. The oviducts, also known as the fallopian tubes, these are simply conducting pathways that move the egg from the ovary to the uterus. Fun fact, the ovary is not at all connected to the oviduct. The oviduct actually has, you can't see it very well here, but it has these finger-like projections that basically, they're lined with cilia, and they basically pull the egg into the oviduct as they move. The ovary is free-floating, which is how you can get pelvic pregnancies. The uterus is right here. It's a hollow muscular organ. There's 2 major layers. We have the smooth layer, which we call the myometrium, and then we have the endometrium. The endometrium is the lining that is left every month during the menstrual cycle, otherwise known as the ovarian cycle. It's where the egg develops. Then we have the cervix, which is right here, the neck of the uterus, and then the vagina. Now, most people would think the vagina is simply the external genitalia for the female, and it actually is not. The vagina is actually the birth canal out of which the baby will be born. And it is right here. So the ovarian cycle, follow with me here. So with spermatogenesis, we have 3 basic levels. Here we have a number of them. So the ovarian cycle is about 1 month in length. And before birth, all of the females' primary oocytes have formed. And then at puberty, 1 follicle a month develops. And the way that it develops, follicle maturation, it will then develop into a secondary follicle, which then completes its first meiotic division, forming the secondary oocyte and first polar body. So let's follow this. Here we have the primary follicle. This secretes estrogen. Then the follicle thickens. The fluid continues. This is actually where we can get a cyst from as this grows. Then the mature Graafian follicle will complete meiosis 1 and form a polar body. So what's a polar body? So in spermatogenesis, each diploid cell will then become 4 cells, 4 viable sperm. In egg development and oogenesis, each diploid cell, each follicle cell, will only release 1 viable egg. And all the other 3, because in meiosis it produces 4, technically 4 haploid cells, all the other 3 cells will become polar bodies, which basically all it is the genetic material, which will be reabsorbed. And the reason for that is because all of the cytoplasm goes here, making the secondary oocyte, which will eventually become the mature follicle and release the oocyte, so that all of the cytoplasm goes into this 1 egg. It really is putting all your eggs in 1 basket. Legit. So we have follicle maturation, then we have ovulation. This is when the oocyte is released from the ovary. This happens right about here. And then the formation of the corpus luteum. The formation of the corpus luteum moves from here to here. And the corpus luteum, should this egg become fertilized, is what will release progesterone to maintain a pregnancy. If pregnancy does not occur, the corpus luteum degenerates, as does the endometrium. The endometrial lining will be sloughed and removed, as will the oocyte be released from the female body. So now you should be able to identify the major reproductive organs, explain reproductive strategies of the male and female, compare and contrast development of eggs and sperm, explain the role of hormones in the female menstrual cycle, as well as explain the role of hormones in the development of sperm. Thanks for joining me. This has been another educating session with Dr. B.